The museum hadn't opened when the glass doors sighed and a little girl slipped in, swallowed by a volunteer vest 2 sizes too big. In one hand she clutched a spray bottle. In the other, a folded rag like a mission flag. She stepped to the desk, lifted her chin and said, clear as a bell, "My mom is sick, so I came instead." Across the hall, Adrian Hale, mid-pitch with wealthy donors, stopped. The numbers, the gala, the careful choreography of favors. All of it went silent. He crossed the marble floor, eyes softening. "Cancel my morning," he murmured to his assistant. Schedules shattered. Something truer began. "Where do we start?" Luna asked, unfolding a crumpled map. "Mom says the glass cases first." An elevator chimed. A red restricted light blinked beyond the velvet rope. Adrian followed as she stepped in, tiny finger on the Tempest's gallery. If stories like this move you, subscribe to Golden Tales and turn on notifications. New heartwarming stories every week. The museum was a cathedral of quiet before opening. Echoes sleeping in marble, the harbor fog pressed to glass. When the doors sighed apart, a little girl slipped through as if she belonged to the hush. The volunteer vest hung past her knees. A paper name tag read Luna in purple crayon. Spray bottle in one hand, folded rag in the other. She approached the reception desk like a pilgrim arriving at an altar. "My mom is sick, so I came instead." Across the rotunda, Adrian Hale stood with 3 donors beneath a suspended schooner. His pitch about restoration schedules and naming rights evaporated mid-sentence. Heads turned. The donors traded raised brows. This wasn't on the morning agenda. But Adrian's gaze had already left the brass plaque and found the child with the earnest chin. He cut across the marble. "Hi, Luna. I'm Adrian. Are you the boss?" she asked, eyes wide, curious but unafraid. "Something like that." He glanced at his assistant. "Cancel my morning. All of it." The assistant blinked. "The endowment review? All of it?" He repeated, softer now, already kneeling to Luna's height. "Tell me about your mom." "She cleans the glass cases first," Luna said, lifting a crumpled aquarium map. "Because fingerprints make the whales look sad. She's at the doctor. She said if she misses again, they'll be mad." Luna squared her shoulders. "So I came to help." It should have sounded outrageous. It sounded like truth. Adrian offered his hand. "Then we'll start where she starts." They moved together through the dim, unlit galleries, motion sensors waking pools of light ahead of their steps. In the Harbor Lives Hall, Luna set down her rag with reverence and studied a ship in a bottle. "Mom says big things also need small care," she said, fogging a corner of glass with her breath before stopping herself. "But not like that." Adrian smiled despite himself. He saw the world she'd been taught to notice. Smudges, creaks, the way stories go dull when no one minds the little things. They reached the elevator. A velvet rope barred access to the lower level. Beyond it, a red restricted light pulsed like a heartbeat. Luna pressed the button with ceremony. "Tempest's gallery first. It's where Mom checks the lights." The doors slid open. Inside, a laminated maintenance card listed procedures with neat checkboxes and someone's careful handwriting. "Start with glass. See what's real." Adrian held the door with his palm. Somewhere behind them, a donor's voice rose in clipped surprise, and the front desk radio crackled to life. He glanced down at Luna's determined face and stepped into the elevator. "Okay," he said. "Let's see what's real." The doors closed, and the radio hissed. Alert from Tempest's motion before hours. "Do we have clearance?" The Tempest's gallery woke like a storm caught in amber. Thunder recorded in plaques, waves frozen in oil and glass. The elevator chimed. The restricted light went still. Luna stepped out first, clutching her rag the way a sailor grips a rope. "Mom checks these lights because they flicker when the air gets cold," she said, pointing to the track lamps above a sweeping diorama. A schooner climbing a painted wall of sea. "People think it's spooky." She says it's just loose contact. Adrian glanced up. Your mom is very observant. She sees the small things, Luna answered, eyes on the glass. That's how big things don't break. The security radio crackled again from the front desk. Distant now. Copy, Adrian's with her. The tension in the room eased. Luna moved closer to the massive glass case. It held a miniature harbor, masts, gulls, foamy crests the size of fingernails. She raised the spray bottle, trigger trembling with the solemnity of a ritual. Wait, Adrian said gently, stepping alongside her. Let's check the label. Some cases need a special cleaner. Luna lowered the bottle, cheeks warming. Right? Mom says read before you do. They found the tiny sticker, the case wanted microfiber only. Luna tucked the bottle under her arm and, with reverence, unfolded her rag. She wiped in careful circles, barely brushing the surface, the way a child copies cursive for the first time. For a moment, all Adrian heard was the hush of cloth on glass and the low thrum of the building waking. Then a click overhead and the nearest lamp stuttered. Luna froze. The cold light, she whispered. Adrian glanced at the track, gauging the mount. Stay with me. He radioed facilities and, while they were en route, dragged a little step stool from the corner. He didn't climb policy, but he stood beneath the lamp, one hand raised just shy of the fixture, eye tracing the seam. It's okay, he said, meeting Luna's worried look. We'll leave this for the pros. He knelt, lowering his voice. You didn't break anything. You noticed. That's what keeps the ship afloat. Her shoulders dropped. Mom says noticing is a job. It's a calling, he said, surprising himself with the word. By the time the tech arrived, Luna had placed her rag on the cart like a folded flag. She and Adrian rode the elevator back to the lobby, the world brightening through the glass front as the harbor fog thinned to lace. He bought her an apple juice from the cafe and asked about school, favorite exhibits, the drawing pad peeking from her backpack. She showed him maps, hand-sketched routes that made the museum feel like a storybook. In the margins, a different hand, older, tidy, had penciled notes. Too much glare at 2 p.m. Font hard for kids. Icons help non-readers. Your mom made these? Adrian asked. Together, Luna said. But her arrows are better. A quiet settled in him. The kind that rearranges furniture you didn't know was crooked. He called his assistant. Where is Sophia Reyes? St. Helena Clinic, came the answer. Admitted for observation. He looked at Luna's earnest face. Apple juice tipped toward the last sip. Mid-morning, he drove them to the clinic in a museum van that smelled faintly of salt and old flyers. Luna held his hand in the hallway without asking. When they reached the door, he released it, suddenly unsure what he was to this child. Director, stranger, witness. Sophia lay propped against thin pillows, eyes alert despite the pallor. Her hair, half-pinned, gilded the fluorescent light. For a half-second, fear crossed her face. Luna? Then relief, then embarrassment as she registered Adrian. I'm sorry, she began. I didn't mean. You did everything right, he said softly. Your daughter did too. Luna climbed carefully onto the chair and took her mother's fingers. We started with the glass, she reported. Sophia's laugh was a cracked bell, beautiful for the fracture. Of course you did. Adrian stepped aside, positioning himself near the curtain, present but not crowding. He spoke about the maps, the arrows, the notes in the margins. Sophia pressed her lips together, blinking hard. When she looked at him, the guardedness had thinned. I didn't want trouble, she said, just to keep things from smudging. Then let me help you do that, he answered. And he meant the museum. And he meant her life. As he left, he paused at the nurse's station and arranged a few simple things without ceremony. Temporary flex shifts, a visitor pass for Luna, and a code at security that would keep rumors from turning into obstacles. Outside, the harbor breeze carried brine and the distant clang of a buoy. Adrian inhaled and felt something click into place, like a lamp seated true in its track. The next weeks stitched themselves with small thread. A white towel appeared on Sophia's cart one evening, folded into a neat rectangle. On top, a sticky note in a precise hand. "Don't forget your brow. Some of us notice." She pressed her thumb to the paper before tucking it into her pocket, as if heat might fix the ink into memory. Adrian began walking the back routes. Stairwells that smelled like dust and lemon cleaner, corridors where the stories weren't under lights. He learned the names of night guards, the rhythm of the freight elevator, the way the dock door moaned after midnight. Sometimes he met Sophia between exhibits, their conversations brief, practical, disguised as logistics. "Signage in the Titapools room is high for wheelchairs," she murmured, passing him a bin of microfiber. He nodded. "I'll bring a designer down." She hesitated. "Or I can sketch options, if that's appropriate." "Please do," he said, and the word please put color in her cheeks. They started leaving each other breadcrumbs. He'd slide a printout of a visitor heat map into her cart. She'd return it with pencil arrows suggesting new paths for families with strollers. He'd send a late email to his team, trial icons, low glare, kid height text, and a week later, he'd find Sophia quietly testing a matte film on a problem case, watching how it tamed the reflections. Pressure hummed under the sweetness. A donor cornered him after a preview. "Optics, Adrian," she warned. "We all adore a Cinderella, but the ball must go on." His assistant, well-meaning, closed his office door. "PR flag chatter on a staff forum," she said. "Maybe keep some distance until the gala?" Adrian thought of Luna's maps, start with glass. See what's real. He thanked his assistant and went back to the stairwell. In the Harbor Lives hall, he found Sophia kneeling to adjust a floor marker for a tactile path. Their eyes met across the shadowed aisle. No one spoke. The room smelled like old varnish and sea air. Somewhere, a whale song looped on a speaker. Sophia rose, smoothing her uniform. "Testing a new route," she said, voice low. "Less glare. Fewer stumbles." "Looks right," he answered, and heard in his own tone something he hadn't used in years. Respect without agenda. They stood there, two people in a room without plaques, held not by exhibit glass but by a fragile mutual noticing. From the lobby, the muffled clatter of a school group swelled. The museum would open in minutes. Sophia lifted the white towel, pressed it briefly to her brow, and smiled the smallest smile. "Back to the small things," she said. "Which are the big things?" he replied. As he turned to go, the radio on his belt hissed. "Heads up. Gala committee wants a walkthrough at noon. They're asking about the staff changes you proposed." "Copy," he said, eyes still on Sophia. A question spun in him like a compass needle finding north. He didn't know it yet, but the next invitation he would decline wouldn't be a meeting. It would be a comfortable distance. And the next line he crossed wouldn't be a velvet rope. It would be the one people draw around their hearts when they're afraid of the headlines. Beyond the glass, the first wave of visitors pressed to the front doors. Inside, light traveled down the track and settled. Steady. No flicker. He showed up on a Tuesday when the harbor was the color of pewter and the lobby smelled faintly of rain. Marcus Bell leaned against the marble check-in like a regular, hands in pockets, wearing that careless smile that used to pass for charm. Sophia clocked him the second the elevator doors opened and, in that instant, her body remembered 5 years of silence. "I heard you work here," Marcus said, voice pitched just for her. "And I heard the museum's golden boy has a soft spot for night staff." Sophia steadied the bin in her arms. "What do you want?" "A second chance," he said, then tipped his chin toward the mezzanine where Adrian's office glass floated above the rotunda. "Or maybe just a conversation about generosity." Her fingers tightened on the bin. "You left. You don't get to circle back for benefits." He stepped in, breath sweet with mint. "I get to ask what a director would pay to keep his halo clean." Security drifted closer, sensing tension without context. Sophia didn't raise her voice. "Please leave, Marcus." "Sure," he said, backing toward the doors, palms raised. "I'll leave. But, Sophia, optics." He pointed casually upward. "They're fragile things." By afternoon, the whispers had currents. A donor texted Adrian a screenshot of a staff forum. Another forwarded a gossip blog post that knew just enough to injure. In a small conference room, gala committee members arranged smiles like place cards. "We admire your compassion," a silver-haired patron began, smoothing her silk scarf. "But the museum can't be a stage for personal narratives. We need distance until after the gala." "Which means?" Adrian asked. "Reassign her," a younger donor said brightly, trying to make policies sound like kindness. "Back of house only, and perhaps limit the interactions." In the glass reflection of the harbor, he could see the museum's model ship suspended above the rotunda, every line precise. If he tugged the wrong rope, the whole rigging would sing. He folded his hands. "You're asking me," he said, "to protect the museum by erasing the person who protects it at night." "We're asking you to protect its image," the chairwoman corrected gently. "Images are how people give." He could have negotiated softened edges, promised optics without altering reality. Instead, something in him refused the old choreography. "Thank you," he said, standing. "I've heard you." That evening he took the back routes again, the freight elevator, the lemon-clean stairwell, the quiet between exhibits where the museum breathed. He found Sophia aligning a tactile arrow along the floor of Harbor Lives. The room was all dusk and wood polish. Her white towel was folded on the cart like a flag. "They want me reassigned," she said before he could speak. Her voice didn't shake. "If that's best for the museum, I'll do it." "It isn't best," he answered. "It's neat." She met his eyes, calm, resigned, unbent. "Neat keeps donors happy. And neat has kept too many stories behind glass." He paused, then added, not as strategy but as truth, "I am proud of you." The words landed like weight and lift at once. The gala preview arrived with champagne and flashbulbs. The rotunda glowed. The model schooner cast a sailing shadow over sequins and tuxedos. Adrian stepped to the podium. The board arranged behind him in a crescent of practiced smiles. PR handler touched his sleeve. "Read the remarks," she mouthed. He set the card down. "Good evening," he said, voice carrying to the balconies. "Museums exist to protect what's delicate. But if we only guard objects and not people, our glass is spotless and our soul goes dim." A ripple moved through the donors, polite confusion curdling toward concern. He went on. "Some of our finest work happens in rooms without plaques, where a night shift notices a flicker, where a small hand wipes a case, where someone draws a better path not for headlines but for strangers to find their way. We will honor that work out loud." He took a breath. "To be clear, Sophia Reyes will not be reassigned. She will lead our pilot for visitor wayfinding. If that choice costs us comfort, then may we pay gladly and grow." Silence stretched, taut as rigging in a gale. Then a few claps, uncertain, then more, until applause filled the rotunda like surf against stone. Not everyone joined. A donor with a perfect bow tie turned to leave. The PR handler stared at the abandoned note cards as if they'd combusted. From the mezzanine, Luna leaned over the rail beside a security guard, eyes bright, hands clapping above her head as if to keep rhythm with her own heart. Backstage, away from the lights, Adrian exhaled a breath he hadn't known he was holding. He expected panic to chase it. Instead came a steadiness that felt like a compass settling. He stepped into the service corridor. Sophia was there, half in uniform, half in after-shift sweater, the white towel tucked beneath her arm. They didn't embrace. They didn't have to. "Optics," she said quietly, a wry smile threading the word. "Reality," he answered. And for once, reality won the room. The morning after the gala, the inbox looked like a broken tide clock. Messages rushing in from every direction, out of sync with one another. Some donors threatened to reconsider priorities. Others doubled their pledge with a one-line note. Thank you for saying what museums are for. PR spun, the press called, and somewhere in the noise a simple thing happened. The pilot began. Sophia's desk, an old rolling cart reclaimed from storage, became a temporary command post. She sketched at dawn, tested at midday, listened at closing. Kit height labels appeared in the Titapools room. Matte films dulled glare in tempests. Icons bloomed along maps like breadcrumbs. Little boots for walking tours, a wave for rest areas, a whale tail for quiet corners. Tactile paths threaded from entrance to aquaria. Not as an afterthought, but as a promise. Adrian stayed out of the way except when asked, which turned out to be often. Does the icon read at 3 meters? What if strollers enter from dock door B? He learned to ask better questions and to step back when the answers came from hands that had long been invisible. Then the other storm rolled in. Marcus filed for emergency visitation in family court, bolded with the phrase stable influence at the museum. The timing was designed to wound, to drag the pilot into the mud. Enter Dr. Evelyn Park, calm in navy and flats, carrying a thin folder and a gaze that offered no purchase. We'll keep this quiet, she told Sophia in a small conference room that smelled faintly of coffee and lemon cleaner. We'll keep it kind, but we won't keep it vague. Courtrooms are their own museums. People behind glass, words under lights. Marcus arrived with confidence and left with his shoulders narrowed. Park didn't raise her voice. She lined up dates, years of absence, next to receipts, report cards, clinic notes, and the museum's new flex shift policy. When Marcus mentioned generosity, she let the silence hold until the word withered. The judge set a measured, distant schedule that required work Marcus had never done. He didn't appeal. The pilot ran while the legal papers cooled. Visitors began leaving notes on the comment wall the way sailors leave offerings at a shrine. My son read a sign alone today. The arrows make my grandma brave. We found the quiet corner when I needed to cry. Sophia photographed each one and taped a few inside her cart, a private gallery. Late one afternoon, Luna arrived after school with a backpack heavy with crayons and a permission lanyard swinging at her chest. She trotted beside Adrian through the Harbor Lives Hall, noticing things before he did. Mom says this used to be slippery, she announced, tapping the new matte film with her knuckle. Now it's like the ocean is listening. They found Sophia kneeling by a final floor marker, aligning the edge with a ruler's care. She looked up at Luna first, habit, instinct, then at Adrian. The light in the room treated everyone equally. It made the polished wood earnest and the microfiber heroic. How's our compass? Adrian asked, nodding at the map in Luna's hands. Pointing home, Luna said confidently. They stood together as a family drifted in. Grandfather with cane, mother pushing stroller. A boy with hands clapped over ears against the bustle of the world. The boy saw the whale-tail icon, followed it to the quiet corner, and exhaled into the hush as if someone had lowered the weather. No one applauded. No one had to. The room understood. Metrics followed the moments. Dwell time rose, complaints fell, membership sign-ups ticked north. A local journalist wrote, "A museum that wants you to breathe." Another asked Sophia on camera if she'd always been a designer. She smiled small. "I've always been a noticer." That night, after closing, Adrian found a white towel folded on his desk. No note. He laughed, a quiet, startled thing, and carried it downstairs. In tempests the track lights burned steady, no flicker. He stood with Sophia among the sleeping ships and felt the museum expanding. Not in square footage, but in honesty. "Tomorrow," he said, "I want you to present the pilot to the staff. Your name on the first slide. Your voice in the room." Her eyes shone, then steadied. "Okay." Luna wedged herself between them, small hands finding larger ones. She looked up at Adrian as if weighing an unspoken math, then tried a word on her tongue like a new address. Dad! Sophia startled. Adrian didn't. He squeezed Luna's hand once. Answer enough. Outside, harbor bells rang the hour. Inside, rooms without plaques learned their visitors by heart. And somewhere ahead, waiting like a tide that always returns, was the question of forever. Morning came silver over the harbor, and the museum breathed like a ship waiting for wind. Staff gathered in the auditorium, custodians in fresh polos, docents with clipboards, designers balancing laptops on knees. On the screen, Wayfinding Pilot by Sofia Reyes. No small print. No anonymity. Sophia stood at the lectern with Luna in the front row and Adrian at the aisle, hands folded, not in charge. Present. She didn't perform. She told the room what she'd seen. The glare that makes words vanish at noon. The child who knows pictures faster than letters. The wheelchair that turns an elegant corridor into a maze. She clicked through photos. Kid height labels, matte films, quiet corner icon, tactile routes. Then one last slide comment wall, a quilt of visitor notes. The arrows make my grandma brave. I read a sign by myself. We found calm. Silence and then applause, not the polite kind, but the kind that stands. A guard whistled softly. A senior curator leaned forward as if hearing his own exhibit speak to him. The facilities chief lifted a hand. We'll bake these specs into new installs. A designer. Sophia? Want to co-lead the permanent plan? Someone else? Yes. Another? Please. The word moved through the auditorium like a tide. At lunch, reporters waited by the steps. Adrian fielded questions and redirected the spotlight with the ease of a man repointing a beam. This is Sophia's work. The museum followed. When a donor with a hard smile asked whether mission drift worried him, he pointed at the entrance where a boy traced the whale-tail decal with his finger. We drifted toward people, he said. I can live with that. That evening, the three of them slipped out to the pier where the water kept its own counsel and the city lights drew trembling lines on the dark. The air tasted like salt and metal. Luna chased a gull's shadow and returned beaming, cheeks pinked by wind. Adrian took a breath that felt like a beginning. I used to think leadership was a map, he said, meeting Sophia's eyes. Already drawn, already decided. But this year, you taught me it's a compass, small, honest, always asking what's real. He pulled a small velvet pouch from his pocket and set it in Sophia's palm. Inside, a gold compass pendant. Delicate, working, the needle quivering toward the invisible north. No Neil, no timing trick. Just the shore, the wind, the truth. I don't need a gala, he said, voice low. I need you. I need her. I need the life we already live, named out loud. Will you marry me? Sophia laughed once, a sound like relief loosening a knot, and then the tears surprised her. She nodded, and the harbor took the yes and made it into light. Luna clapped, then squinted suspiciously. So, if she says yes and I said dad and nobody said no, can we go home together for always? For always, Sophia whispered, and the word fit. They didn't announce it with fireworks. They celebrated with grocery store cupcakes on the museum roof after closing, frosting on napkins, feet dangling above the dark rotunda. Night staff drifted past in ones and twos to hug them, to tease Adrian gently. Boss, remember to label the quiet corner at your place. To kiss Luna's hair. The schooner model hung below like a constellation you could reach if you were careful and honest. Weeks turned to a season. The pilot became policy. The policy became culture. New interns learned the back routes first. Designers started their drafts at kid height. The comment wall overflowed. A second board went up. The donor who had left during the gala returned. Not with an apology, but with a check for the tactile route in her father's name. She didn't ask for a plaque. She asked for a path. On a soft Sunday morning, The museum opened a small exhibit called Start with Glass, See What's Real, photographs of hands at work. Microfiber on cases, a steadying palm at a rail, fingers guiding a tactile arrow. The final image was a child's drawing of the museum with tiny boots and whale tails leading visitors inside. Below it, in neat type, Designed by Noticing. Adrian stood with Sophia and Luna in the doorway, feeling not victorious, but right-sized. Leadership as presence. Family as practice. Love as the north you choose again each day. Luna tugged his sleeve. Dad, can we show the quiet corner to new kids? He smiled. That's why we built it. They walked the path together, boots, wave, whale tail, until the world hushed and the room held them like a harbor. If the story touched you, join our Golden Tales family. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. We post heartwarming stories of resilience, love, and everyday miracles every week. Your turn. Which moment hit you hardest? The gala speech, the compass on the pier, or the first visitor who found the quiet corner? Tell us in the comments. And if you've ever been changed by a small act of noticing, share your story. Someone out there needs your light.